I'm Leo Wang, and I'm a bedding expert. I come from a family that's been making bedding for over 20 years. And we've been making bedding products for almost all of the large retailers in the US. This really is remarkable. When it comes to buying a sheet set, I look at three things. The material, obviously what it's made out of, its thread count, and how high of quality it is. And then thirdly, how it's taken care of, and I want to know how long it'll last for me. So first, we're going to take a look at thread count. Thread count is actually a really simple concept. It's how many threads, individual yarns, are going to be within a square inch of the fabric that you're looking at. A higher thread count typically means that it's going to be more comfortable. Because the threads are actually quite close together, there's no gaps, and so when it rubs against your skin, it feels softer and more liquid. Cool, let's first jump into A. When we look at it first, what you can already see is that in terms of thread count, it's not going to be very high. There's a bit of a space, small pores in between the grids, the warp and weft yarn. On to B, you can tell already that this is a significantly higher thread count product. There are no signs of any sort of gaps or pores between the warp and the weft. And then I would say it probably has 200, 300, 400 threads higher than the one we looked at just previously. Another quick test is if you just actually hold it up and breathe through it, you'll be able to see that that breath flows right through without any impediment. Let's move back over to B. Typically when a thread count is high, there's also this added bonus benefit where it's actually a little bit cooling to the hand. When you're holding it against your skin and you feel it, there is that sense of being like a lotion. I'm going to say that B is definitely more expensive than A. A, you can tell that the thread count is significantly lower, probably in the 100, maybe sub 150 thread count point. Whereas product B, I would guess, is in the thread count range of 300, 400, even 500. All right, it's time for the big reveal. 3, 2, 1. Voila. I didn't guess that this would be that cheap though. That is very cheap. Wow. So typically what's going to happen is the more thread count you have, the more expensive the product will be. A higher thread count typically is going to last longer just because there's more threads holding it together and it's more cohesive and strong. The simple rule of thumb is you want a higher thread count, but up until a certain point, it's probably not worth paying extra for. That said, up to 300 or even 400 thread count, it will make for a more comfortable set of sheets. Anything above 600 or 700 is probably a bit of a marketing gimmick. Now we're looking at cotton. What makes one cotton better than another is the length of its fiber. The individual fibers, the simplest way to think about it is that they're just like little hairs. You want those fibers to be as long as possible. When they're longer, it means that one, you're going to get ultimately a stronger yarn. But then secondly, when they're longer, you're going to have to kind of splice them together less. And so it's actually going to be more comfortable against your skin as well. Almost immediately, I can tell that the fabric in A has a bit more luster to it. It actually feels softer. Visually, you can tell that it almost has a bit of shine to it, like a satin quality. Whereas the sheet set to my left feels a little bit more almost crispy and starched. It has a sense of dryness to it and maybe isn't necessarily going to be as high of a quality as the one on my right. With product A, you'll notice that its shadows are almost a little bit smoother. It's because it doesn't wrinkle and fold and become crisp as easily as a product with less. When I look at product B, it doesn't have that kind of liquid feeling to it, where the shadows are a little bit harsher and it's a little less shiny to the eye as well. This is a tricky one. I don't know. I'm gonna say this one is the long staple cotton product and are going to be more comfortable, but a little bit more expensive, whereas this is probably a standard cotton. All right, the moment of truth. Wow, that is certainly a price discrepancy. So obviously the price points here are very different. One is almost 10 times more expensive than the other one, but I think it really shows in the product. I think knowing that it is 100% cotton is already a great starting point. As we noted, that is a natural material, and it is going to be more breathable, more moisture wicking, and more comfortable than typically a synthetic. Knowing that this is a longer staple Egyptian cotton product, I would be more willing to bet that it's going to last longer and be a more comfortable product for day-to-day use. Now we're going to take a look at weave. When we are talking about weave, we're talking about the way a sheet set is constructed. A sheet set typically is a woven sheet of fabric, and the way it's woven together is you take yarns that run horizontally and yarns that run vertically, and you run them over and under one another. Visually, it's almost obvious, right, as you take a look at them. I'll actually start with product B, which is the simple plain weave. You'll actually be able to see it. There's a very simple kind of grid in the fabric that is running horizontally and vertically, and it's quite even. So when you look at it, it's almost, in most cotton sheets, a visible feature of that fabric. Looking over here, we have something that is very exotic, actually. Because of the way the yarns come together, there's almost always a very nice luster to the product. There's going to be a greater play of shadows and design, which I think that ultimate buyer looking for the most luxurious design is going to be looking for and paying for. When you're going to try and produce something this complicated, why it's ultimately so expensive is because a fine yarn is easily broken, especially when you try to do very complicated things with it, like shooting it across, jetting it across via air, across a loom in a complicated array. This means that in order to produce this sheet of fabric, it probably took twice, maybe even 3 times the same amount of material it took to make this one, simply because of all the breakage involved. What you have here is, as far as a weave goes, probably one of the finest products available. I would say that product A is certainly more expensive than product B. Product A simply has a weave that I know someone spent a lot of time and effort into programming and ensuring that it came out efficiently from a loom. A pretty sophisticated level of artistry, I believe. Let's reveal them. Product A and product B. Wow. You guys didn't skimp on this one. I'm laughing because I'm not actually sure I've ever come across a $1,450 sheet set, but this really is, when I was just observing it, remarkable. I didn't think you guys were gonna go that hard, but you guys went hard on this one. Weave is actually really simple. At the end of the day, it's mostly a design element that furthers the visual appeal of the product that you're using. If you're just someone who's looking for something that is long-lasting and really comfortable, you probably don't need to shell out extra for it. But if you are someone who is going after a more luxury look, then you can look after something like this, which has an extraordinarily special weave to it. It is essentially a woven form of embroidery, and then the technical term for this kind of weave is jacquard. But at the end of the day, a percale weave is actually the most breathable. This time we're going to look at materials. When it comes to bedding, there are a few broad categories of material. They're going to be your synthetic materials, such as polyester, and then your natural materials. This is anything from cotton to linen to silk and so forth. Natural materials are going to cost more than synthetic ones, so the typical ladder up in terms of price will probably, for sheets, start with polyester at the bottom, and then cotton above that. Then even further, you'll hit linen, and after linen, you'll get into silk. So let's take a look at these two products here. I can already tell that they're both very high quality materials. I'm almost certain that product A is a linen. It has that kind of very natural, almost rough spun and organic looking weave. There's going to be that sense that, oh wow, these are actually made from fibers that are 5 inches, 6 inches, 3 to 4 times longer than the typical cotton fiber. You're also able to tell that this is a linen because it has a linen weave. A linen weave is a unique weave which actually looks like little loops. When I look to my left at B, I can almost immediately tell that this is some sort of silk or faux silk. It has that incredible silk luster, which is best described as kind of opalescent. Without touching it, I wouldn't be able to guarantee or promise if it's real silk. Let's start with A. So with linen, it has an incredible property where it has a little bit more give and take than cotton. It stretches to some extent, and it'll then compress to some extent in a way a cotton sheet will actually, by comparison, feel so rigid. And then let's go over to B. Obviously, this is a very different product to the linen. It does feel like a high quality silk. Actually, I can tell that this is something called charmeuse, which is a form of silk where the sheen on one side is actually enhanced by reducing the sheen on the other side. These products are both in the luxury class, so they're both going to be quite expensive. Ultimately, I would have to gamble on the silk being a little bit more expensive just because the process of making it is that much more involved. Okay, let's unveil them. A and B are $249 and $500. I would say that actually both of them are a good deal for what you're getting. This linen sheet, I wouldn't be surprised if other brands were marketing it in the $300 to $400 range. With the silk over here, again, I wouldn't be surprised if this product in other brands or retailers were priced at $700, $800. This charmeuse format of silk is, other than in sheet sets like this, seen in dresses made by Versace. In summary, linen is going to be probably the longest lasting material that you can purchase. It's why traditionally bed linens are called linens and were transferred from one generation to the next. With silk, you get what is the ultimate in luxury. Additionally, silk has a hypoallergenic protein. So if you find that you are allergic to something, a silk product is going to be that much better for you. Now we're looking at how technology is used in fabric and sheets. When we talk about technology in fabric, what we're talking about are different materials and material science that people in the textiles industry have developed to help enhance that product's ability to be either warmer, to regulate your temperature maybe, all of those kind of product functionality points that we care about. Let's start with B. There's almost nothing about it visually or physically that will distinguish whether it uses a fabric technology or not. I believe B is a sheet set made by a brand called Newsleep because it also has their signature satin weave, and I can tell that actually part of this is a natural, probably eucalyptus-based fabric as well. They borrowed a technology called Outlast from the performance apparel space, commonly used by Adidas in their training gear. Originally, NASA developed it for its astronauts. Taking a look at A, this product here is a sheet set that is very comfortable. It is, I believe, 80% polyester and 20% spandex. It's knit, so it kind of feels like more of a t-shirt than like an Oxford shirt. And it has that kind of stretchiness that is kind of comfy when you're in bed rolling around. A markets itself as a technology-based sheet set. But in fact, it actually, to the best of my knowledge, does not have a real technology or material science-based technology in it. It's a bit of a sham, to be honest. It's a bit of a sham. Polyester and spandex are comfortable, but polyester as a performance apparel material is not actually one of the best. It ends up being not breathable and traps heat. I would say that these two products are priced comparably. I would imagine that they are both in the $150 to $200 range. Should we find out? Oh, surprise, surprise. I actually think this discrepancy is reasonable and justified. When I look at this product, it actually does come with a scientifically backed and research-proven technology. I would also bet that it is more comfortable and will have a longer lifespan as well. What you want to keep in mind when you're purchasing bedding is, of course, that technology can be really, really valuable to you. For example, that it's more temperature regulating or that it's hypoallergenic. You'll want to look for a specific technology that actually backs that up. At the end of the day, when you're looking to bring home a new set of sheets, you want to consider what its materials are, if it has some sort of technology. The world of sheets is really, really broad. There's so much out there. And no matter what your budget is or how much you want to spend on it, there's a lot for you to explore. So have fun finding what's comfortable, what soft means to you, what you want out of a pair of sheets.